Jonathan Wilson, multiple award-winning author, editor of The Blizzard. Thank you very much for joining.
Oh, thanks very much for having me.
I brought you on in your capacity as a Sunderland fan. You must be pretty thrilled with how the season has started.
In one sense, yes. And I was talking about this to another Sunderland fan this week. And maybe this is just football fans, but we sort of think it could have been a bit better. It feels we've left some cheap points out there. Like getting
Okay.
beat at Burnley. Dan Ballard got injured early in that game, and that seemed to disrupt them. I think Sunderland generally are better when teams come onto them. I think this is a team set up really to play with a low block. I think they're pretty good at certainly crosses in the box. They're very good at defending against. And then hitting on the break. And Burnley obviously don't really give you the chance to do that. But the Villa game, stupid red card, and getting a draw when you don't have 10 men is obviously you'd have taken that.
Yeah.
What was it, 32 minutes that red card? And in that moment, I would absolutely have taken the draw. But you sort of think, God, if he hadn't got sent off, we probably should have won that game. So yeah, it's been great, but I also sort of feel that the fixtures has been pretty kind. I think we also got to acknowledge that. Palace away, obviously is difficult, and getting the point there and playing actually really well there. But yeah, you just that sort of fear you always have, I guess, as a fan that we possibly could have picked up another, 2-4 points, and then it would look a bit better and we'd be even closer to safety.
Well, I mean, there's 4 points difference between Sunderland and United. But obviously, the air around both clubs is so different at the moment. I mean, are you guys still on, in your opinion, still on kind of a high from the way in which you got back to the Premier League? Because it was so euphoric, wasn't it, the playoff final?
Well, and the semi-finals. I mean, the Brie. I mean, I was very concerned the way that Sunderland just sort of shut down the last 8 games of the season. It was sort of like, right, we're not going to bother with these. We're going to have a rest. But I mean, I don't know. Sunderland were pretty much fourth. They were very fourth. That from January onwards, I don't know if it's actually statistically true, but certainly felt like there was always about an 8 point gap above us and about an 8 point gap below us. And
Right.
whatever happened, we were always just in fourth. And I think that was right, actually. I think the top three sides were clearly better than Sunderland last season, and Sunderland were clearly better than everybody else. So that was logical. But that decision that he took sort of mid-April to rest players, yeah, every bit of received wisdom says you need to go into the playoffs with momentum, and
Mm.
Sunderland totally sacrificed that. I think they only scored in the two of the last 8 games of the season. It's some absurd statistic like that, but they scored injury time in both legs of the semi-final and then in the final. So that's as great a vindication as you can get. But then there's that slightly odd thing that this is a totally different team. There's hardly any players left who played in the final who are still your regular stars. Trey Hume at fullback is one of them. Wilson Isidore, who sort of faded out of the picture towards the end of last season, so lost a bit of form. Having had a good season, suddenly scored in three successive home games and looks very sharp. Enzo Lefebvre, who had a load of injury issues the second half of last season, but he now seems to sort of be a regular in a way that he wasn't at the end of last season. But I haven't missed anybody. I don't think there's anybody else who's Dan Ballard, I guess, but he's not a guaranteed starter. So it's such a different team. It's almost quite hard to link what happened in May to what's happening now. And I think you have to do that as a promoted side. I think you can't be sentimental about this. The positive is it's such a young side. I mean, Chris Rigg will probably start on Saturday. Who's what is he 19 now? Was really good last season. I think if Habib Diarra were fit and he's out probably till December with a hamstring, he's just had surgery, I don't think Chris Rigg would play. So the fact that a lot of them are young, a lot of them are kids, I think is a little bit less brutal than it can be when teams go up. That there is a sense of, well, just hang around 2 or 3 years, you get some minutes, and then we'll see where we are, rather than, well, thanks very much for your service, off you go now. But I think I think the way Sunderland have bought was hugely impressive. That within a week of the window opening, they'd signed half a dozen players, and every time you did a bit of research on them, Noah Siddiqui, talked to people in Belgium, they're like, he's brilliant, and he is brilliant, and he's only 20. I mean, I
Yeah.
sort of watched him against Villa, where he literally ran himself into getting cramp in injury time. In my head, it's oh yeah, he's mid-20s. He's not. He's 20. He's a little his touch is a little. If you're being really picky, his
Mm.
touch is a bit heavy, but he works unbelievably hard. His movement's great. He carries the ball really well. You look at the two centre backs, Salderete and Mukiele. I don't think in my lifetime someone had ever had two such classy centre backs. Both of them good on the ball, both of them big. I mean, Alderete, I'm slightly ashamed I never heard of him. And then we signed him, and he's a great player. Can pass a ball 40, 50 yards without apparently any effort. Good in the air, tough. Mukiele has obviously got the experience, but settled in very nicely alongside him. So, yeah, things look really positive, but Palace away, they haven't really had a hard game yet.
Okay, I just want to jump back to something you said there, because obviously your manager gambled essentially in the playoffs towards the end of last season, just to say, right, we'll essentially chuck these games so we're fresh. There's a parallel there with what I think Amorim did in terms of deprioritizing the Premier League so that he could win the Europa League, which if you compare the win percentages and everything, the record in the Europa League was really decent last season until you face the Premier League side. So essentially, I think the difference comes down to you gambled and won, we gambled and lost, and it makes a world of difference, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean that is the nature of a gamble. It looks great if you win, looks terrible if you lose. There's also the slight complication there of, and I'm currently in Border to watch Tottenham, and there's been a lot of talk about their semi-final here, 4.5 months ago, and you sort of realise, well, they're Premier League teams. Of course, they should be beating Border. It's. I'm not sure if a Premier League team to be winning in the Europa League is really that much to get excited about. It's well, of course you are, because the level is so much lower. And I think the United play that was really obvious with last season was Casemiro. Looked great in the Europa League, looked terrible in the Premier League. And the reason is the Europa League is 10, 20% slower than the Premier League.
So in introducing Sunderland, you've spoken about a team that's very comfortable in the low block, which we always struggle with. A team that's got a lot of class in defence and threat on the break. You must be coming relatively confident, to be honest, on Saturday.
Well, it's a very odd situation. I'm sure you've heard lots of people say this, that going to Old Trafford in the past was a game where if you got anything, it was a bonus. And in some ways, you privileged to play there's too much. But as a fan, it was nice to go to Old Trafford. It made you feel important. And we had the opposite when we were in League One, where there was the time when Joey Barton was manager of Fleetwood, and he pressed the right button. Obviously, having played for Newcastle, he knew which buttons to press. And there's this moment where there had to almost be an intervention of fans going, "Hang on, we don't have a rival with Fleetwood. Let's not. We shouldn't even know who Fleetwood are. We're not going to demean ourselves by pretending this matters to us." Whereas it's the opposite with United. If Sunderland win at Old Trafford on Saturday, that will feel like a famous result, even though lots of teams now do that. And we do have the memories of the 1-0 win when Ryan Giggs had taken over after the end of the Moyes season, which part of that great escape for Sunderland.
Yeah.
A game I remember very clearly because I went to a local French restaurant to get away from a game so I wouldn't be tempted to watch it, not realising this French restaurant had some Canal Plus subscription which was showing the game. So I was sat with my back to the screen throughout the afternoon trying not to find out what was going on and being just increasingly anxious. Every time I stood up, if I went to the loo or whatever, trying just to kind of guide my eyes, I couldn't see this screen behind me.
Oh man, yeah, I remember that day well. I think probably only a couple of months earlier, you triumphed in the world's worst penalty shootout as well.
Oh, well, that was a bizarre day as well. I was on a flight to Colombo to play cricket. I was on a cricket tour to Sri Lanka, and we took off. I think when did United took the lead in that game, didn't they, in the second leg?
Yeah, so you were 2-1 ahead. We went 1-0 up second leg, and then Phil Bardsley. So I went extra time, 119 minutes. Phil Bardsley scores. De Gea chucks it in. Then 120, 121. Chicharito levels it on aggregate again, straight to penalties. And then I've never seen a penalty shootout finish 2-1.
Yeah, I still haven't seen it because I saw we were 1-0 down, got on the flight. Yeah, have to turn your phones off, and I get off of the flight in Colombo. we finally get connection by the luggage carousel, waiting for my cricket bag to come around, and look at my phone. It's like 280 messages. I'm like, okay, something mad has happened here because if we just lost, I'd have maybe 10, 15 messages. If we'd won, I'd have maybe 30 or 40. 280. And I was then kind of made sure I went through them in order. And it was a combination of my mum and a couple of mates who knew I was on this flight with sort of, penalty by penalty updates. But of course, when you've got three or four different people all updating the same penalty shit, absolutely impossible to follow. Just miss, 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 miss. And then finally got to the bottom. Was like, I'm still not sure what's happened, but people seem happy. We probably have won. I don't know. I think it was that term as well where it was definitely. I was definitely in Sri Lanka. I've done 2 tours of Sri Lanka. I think it was that one where we won 3-0 at St James's, and again I was refusing to watch it. We'd been invited to lunch at a cricket club, and they had it on the bar, and I was desperately trying to avoid it.
So there's a common thread here. Can you please ensure that you watch Saturday's game, please? Very much.
I will be in Argentina, so almost certainly I will not be watching it.
Wonderful. Just when we need a good omen.
Yeah.
Jonathan, I've taken up enough of your time already. Thank you so much. You're a gentleman, and
Cheers. Thank you.
all the best, not for Saturday, but beyond.